Hi, everyone. Ready to start?
Excellent. So we'll get started. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Mario Rivera. I'm the president of Alpha Boston. First of all, we want to start by thanking all of you for joining us at today's webinar and let you know that we sincerely hope you and your families are safe and healthy during this time. 2020 has not been what I expected this year would look like. Many of you probably can relate. Many of the plans that were made in the beginning had to be reimagined, and we have to reshift our strategies and adapt to this new way of life. At Alpha, we are committed to delivering on our mission to all of our members and to all of our community partners. I would like to thank our panelists for their time, Yvonne Garcia, Roxanne Martinez, and Sandra Noemi Torres, and our Women of Alpha team, Giselle Lopez and Laura Rodriguez Alvarez, VP and co-chair of the Women of Alpha Boston Committee.
Thank you, Mario. While these are extremely challenging times, I do have to say that I'm excited. I'm excited to see the resilience of our Latinas, see the ways that we're able to adapt and thrive. Women of Alpha seeks to provide Latinas with the tools and the roadmaps that they need to strengthen their leadership and management skills, fostering both their professional and personal development. And what better way to live our mission than by sharing how we have been adapting to this crisis. And we are continuing to deliver our content on a meaningful way to our members, allies, and allies in a virtual environment.
Not only that, Giselle, but how great is it that we have these three amazing Latina leaders as part of our panel today. I am really excited for today's discussion, so let's start by introducing them. Please know that these are high-level introductions because we could do 3 separate webinars on their profiles alone. So in no particular order of amazingness, we are joined by Yvonne Garcia. Yvonne is the Chief of Staff to State Street CEO and Chairwoman of the Greater Boston's Chambers Women's Network Advisory. And we can't forget to mention she previously served as a Chairwoman of Alpha National. Next, we have Roxanne Martinez. Prior to joining DentaQuest in September of 2019 as Executive Vice President, Chief Human Resources Officer, Roxanne served as the Senior Vice President and Chief Talent Officer for the U.S. region of Liberty Mutual's global retail market business. Roxanne is also entering her 3rd year on the National Board of Alpha and is currently the chair of the Alpha HR Committee. And last but most certainly not least, we're joined by Sandra Noemi Torres. Sandra is a transformational coach and trainer and owner of Plan Your Company. Sandra is also the president of United Latinas, an organization committed to the growth and evolution of Hispanic and Latina women. Thank you again for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. So before we start, if you have any questions that you would like to ask our panelists, please send them through the chat. We'll be addressing them at the end of our Q&A session. In a way, the last 3 months have been challenging for all of us. We have to rethink the variables of our life equation. That's to say that many aspects of our day-to-day lives have changed. We have to adapt from the way we work to the way we interact with our families and friends. And I would like to learn from you, how have you been coping with these aspects in your own life? So let's start with work. The first question that we have is, what has been your work experience like in this new world of isolation and social distancing? Can you walk through some of the challenges that you have encountered and you didn't expect? And I would like to start with Roxanne.
So thank you, Giselle. I'm so pleased to be here today and to be able to share my experiences and thoughts with everybody who's attending today. So let's start with the question. You know, there's a lot that's been going on in my life. In the last 7 months, I started a new role with a new organization and have joined many new teams in the process. And it's hard enough starting a new job, much less going to an environment where you're socially distant from the team that you're getting to know in all aspects, right? Working, trying to figure out how you best deploy and perform your role in a new organization and drive your organization to a higher level of performance, while simultaneously building the team and the trust in each other, but also trust in you. So one of the challenges that I've had is not just navigating all the newness that I'm confronted with, but it's then coupled with agile decision-making that, employees expect from their leaders at a time of crisis. And then the resulting fatigue of taking that new and that agile decision-making and what it does to your brain and your body, and making sure that that's being managed in a meaningful, thoughtful way. So I'd say the biggest surprise for a really highly energized person that I am is that fatigue, and learning how to take that time out. And we can talk more about tactics later, but finding the way to manage that fatigue and being the most balanced and best self when you come to work.
Thank you for sharing that, Roxanne. I think that at the beginning, we all thought that we had so much time, but then we all very fast realized that there is not as much time as we thought, and we're spending more time trying to do our daily routines, and that has impacted our day-to-day lives with, businesses closing, daycare closed, routines changing. And I would love to hear Yvonne's thoughts on our first question next.
Thank you. It's so nice to see you, all my friends, Roxanne and Mario. Missed you all. And I love the beach behind you, Mario. It looks like you're a nice island. But thanks for including me. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone. I would say it's been a little bit different for me. I have been coming to the office, and although some of my girlfriends say how lucky I am because I'm not home with the kids, I must admit that it's been one of my greatest sources of guilt is not being home with the kids. They realize that most of the parents are home right now, and so I am continuously getting text messages asking, when I'm coming home and why I can't work from home, etc. It's actually quite lonely here. There's a skeleton crew, and you realize how much you miss the collaboration with your peers and your fellow coworkers. But we have tried to look and see the silver lining through all of this. And although I'm not home much in the evenings, we get to have dinners together. It's really been great to see how coworkers have just adapted this new way of working, leading with a sense of urgency, feeling empowered to make decisions. There's a lot of greatness that has come out of this crisis that we as an organization hope to capture, and personally as well. I have been thinking about how to give back. It's tough. Usually we give back by holding meetings and mentoring people, and we can still do that virtually, but just given the times, how can I give back in a relevant way? So I'm working with our CEO and launching an effort to help small businesses, particularly minority-owned businesses and women-led, and encouraging my kids to find their own ways of giving back. So ensuring that I said, when this is over, I want you to look back and be proud of how you acted and the decisions you made, and how potentially you were helping others along the way. So I will say, some days are tougher than others. I miss hugging my parents. I miss seeing them. Mother's Day is coming up, which I'm sure everyone has that on their minds, but always trying to think about all the positives that has brought us a sense of unity. And for women in particular, I will say, for those that are working from home, I remember sitting in conference rooms, and if there was a woman on the phone and the baby would cry, a few eyes would roll, and the change in behavior and the change in sentiment around that, almost this endearing sentiment that overtakes people now when you hear that, is really great. I think people are realizing too that you can work from home and you can manage, although it can be hard. It's possible. And I think the mindset is changing around what flex really means. A lot of managers originally said that they supported it, but some really didn't. I think it's really shed a light on the ability to be productive home, and I think that will probably define the workforce of the future and how that will look. So there's a lot to explore, and just taking advantage of what the crisis presents is the mindset I'm trying to keep.
Absolutely. There is a phrase that says that no crisis should left us without any opportunities to improve. And that's what I mentioned with resilience. How can we take this that is happening and affecting so many people and flip it to the positive side? Thank you for sharing your personal story, Yvonne. Sandra.
Yes, thank you so much.
Some of the challenges you encounter? Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, so there are many challenges, right? For the greater part of probably about the last 13 years, I've been working from home. So the moment that, all of this happened, it wasn't very difficult for somebody like me to pivot and just kind of take what I've been doing offline and put it online, like in things like this. One of the things that I was thinking back of the very first times I started working from home, and it's the balance of home business, right? You're at home and we're trying to maneuver and focus on the work as well as the laundry needs to get done. And maybe I should do this, or we start feeling this internal guilt. That's what happened to me in the beginning. I think it's important that we stay focused on the business. And that was a great point, Yvonne, is that we are more productive working from home. We can be, because we're not limited by a time. We can work at, 4 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock at night and work our schedule around that. So I think that has been, a blessing to me and to organizations that see, we can be productive, even more creative when we're working in an environment where we can take a couple minutes to dilute, come back, kind of reassess our thoughts and go back to our work. And I think that this has brought this really to the forefront where we are capable of being much more. So yeah, I think the challenges are initially just getting used to what it is that you need to do, staying focused, and then creating a plan, to overcome any obstacles.
Thank you. And the audience can see our speakers have different setups during this time. Some of them are working from home for the first time. Some of them have very experienced working from home for like several years, and others are going to the office and facing different situations and scenarios. So one of the questions that I have for you all is, have you had to change or adjust your leadership style and techniques to support your employees and teams during these difficult times? And I would like to start with Yvonne.
Yeah, that's a great question. One thing that has come out of this crisis is this sense of caring for each other in a much amplified way, which has been really nice. So I would say my leadership style hasn't really changed. I've probably have been more intentional in my outreach. And I've also skipped levels. And what I mean by that is where I would directly just communicate with my direct reports. I now am reaching out to their direct reports and down the chain just to make sure that they're okay and that they understand that I'm aware of how they're doing. Some have, had to manage, deaths. Some have had to manage sicknesses in their families. So I've been more intentional in my outreach. But as Latina leaders, I think you can all attest that I think our secret sauce is that compassion and empathy that we lead with. And so that has probably just been augmented in this crisis. But I think that we've had that all along. But I'm just being more intentional and more thoughtful. I have a few team members that live close to me, so I'll drop off, snacks for their kids at their doorstep, things like that I probably wouldn't have done under BAU, business as usual type of days. Just trying to be sensitive to what people are going through and heighten the recognition aspect as well.
Mm-hmm. Latinas are always compassionate leaders, especially Latinas. I would love to hear your thoughts on our question, Sandra.
Thank you. Yes, I think very much like how Yvonne mentioned it. My leadership style hasn't changed too much. We are empathetic by nature, we are compassionate, I'll have calls like this and, you want to hug people, even more so, but it's reaching out, and being connected and staying connected to them. But not so much change drastically because of this, just because of the nature of the business that we're in. But definitely the innateness that we have as being compassionate and loving people, I think transfers very easily to, checking in on someone and making sure everybody is okay and needs your support or not, if they're doing okay.
Thank you, Sandra. What are your thoughts, Roxanne?
So like Yvonne and Sandra, I've been reaching out more, but I want to talk more about the techniques and tactics. You know, in a world where information is coming fast and furious from a variety of different modalities, one of the tactics that we've used has gone from these very long, elegant, well-planned communications to bite-sized chunks, and letting our employees and our teams digest information in a more incremental way. And that has actually had huge, huge uplift with the employees at DentaQuest, because they feel that they're getting communications just in time as situations evolve, but that are meaningful to the feedback that they're giving us through employee surveys, which are done on a regular basis, where we use those for continuous improvement in their experience. I think with regard to my team, a tactic that I've used is introduce something called the Structuralist Structure. And think of this as a town hall, which regularly has an agenda, and it has, you might have business updates and financial report outs and project updates. I've actually used my town halls, taking them from 60 minutes down to 45, because everybody needs a break, right, between meetings. The use of the hour upon hour upon hour meeting is driving people, I think, a little batty sitting in their chair if they're working from home and using Microsoft Teams or Zoom or WebEx. So cut that down, there's the structure, but the unstructured component is open conversation using Microsoft Teams with an open-ended question and dialogue. And a great example of this is engaging our CEO at DentaQuest in an open forum with the HR community, where he could converse and I could converse on these questions that were of importance about the remote worker of the future, and getting people's input about their life experience at home, so to make it more real. And it goes back to compassion and empathy. It's relating to the people that you interact with each and every day, but finding different ways to engage, not just the people you see and talk to on a day-to-day basis. And I find ways to talk to my direct reports. I think we'll get to that in some future questions that are a little different. But it's also taking the larger teams and embracing their feedback in different ways through pulse surveys and showing them that it meant something. Using the structuralist structure of a town hall engagement differently, so everybody learns from each other and people don't feel alone.
Thank you for wonderful examples, Roxanne. I think the consensus is that we are leveraging our specific skills in leadership, compassion, empathy. We're there to listen to our employees, to be sensitive to their needs, and to be able to establish tools to communicate in a structured and non-structured manner. Excellent. My last question related to work is, what are your thoughts on how to keep a strong relationship and high engagement despite the social distancing? What have you found that works and doesn't work? And I would like to start with Sandra.
Thank you. Definitely, I've been doing a lot more of Zoom, and I love that input, Roxanne. I'm gonna keep that in the back of my mind. Because it is important that we're not constantly sitting in front of this conversation, this monitor. But I have found that being here in front of a monitor and having more one-to-one conversations versus being out, meeting people, you can develop that relationship, and you can develop a strong bond on a video-to-video conversation. I think it's important we stay consistent in being in showing up, is one of the things, showing up in all the platforms that, you are subscribed to, and showing up in someone's direct messaging and continuing relationships, and showing up in their email box and making sure that they don't forget you. So relationships are built when it's the consistency of you're around. I think that's so important to just make sure you're constantly, at the top of somebody's mind, or just checking in, just light checking in, or, just conducting business as usual, but making sure that we don't drop the ball and let our relationships fall by the wayside because now we can't meet them in person and it's a completely different. No, take the time to say, you know what, let's catch up for 5-10 minutes on a quick video call. Let's make sure, things are still going, or we're checking in on each other, and we could still progress, in that way.
Thank you, Sandra. Do you have any specific examples when showing up has worked for you? I think, we have different audiences here. Some of them are younger and some of them have more experience, but we are seeking mentors, and showing up is one of the core things that we have to do, but sometimes we face lack of response, or we don't know what's the best way to follow up or to show up. You know, COVID-19 is representing challenges, but I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, definitely about showing up. I take it, you know, as Latinas, you know, it's really the empathetic approach, you know, the compassionate approach. I find best a lot of direct messaging and sending, you know, language that you're really sincerely checking in with someone. That's so important. You know, sometimes the very first thing that I find, even with some of my clients, is they want to send a sales message or they want to ask for something. I think it's important that we give. You know, we give information, we give our heart, we give our time, you know, a couple minutes just to check in on somebody. The most important way to build a relationship is to make sure that you're there, they understand that you're there, and not for any other reason than just to sincerely check on the other individual. Because you know, so many people that are like, oh, this is what I do, don't forget, I'm trying to, you know, this is my business, or this is what I'm working on. That, especially during times like this, can really fall on deaf ears. You know, we're all trying to like maneuver this globally. It's important that we have these communications where we're sincerely reaching out and saying, how are you doing? You know, how is your family doing? And how do we, you know, take this, you know, and keep having those conversations with them and checking in on them. So a lot of like video conferencing, a lot of text messaging. I have some people on WhatsApp. So, you know, it's maneuvering all of that. And that is a challenge. Yeah, first question, but it's those communication skills, whatever worked in the past, you know, or whatever means you had to communicate with somebody, it's really communicating energy, right? Because it's not just language, it's more like, I got you, I feel you, I relate to you, we're in this together. And how do we come out of this? Or how do we become what we're supposed to become out of this?
Authenticity in every single piece of communication is important, however that method takes place, even if it's a phone call or texting, or, you know, texting through WhatsApp, or all these apps that are out there nowadays, or even social media. I would like to hear your thoughts, Roxanne, regarding how to keep these relationships strong despite the social media and distancing rules.
Absolutely. So I echo Sandra's comments that it is about those frequent interactions through a variety of different mediums, but it also is stopping to listen. Sometimes when you ask the question, how are things going? You need to be prepared for the fact that the answer is not always going to be fine. And when you get the answer that is not fine, it's actually taking time out and making as much time as needed for that individual to talk and actively listen. And if they ask for your assistance in problem solving, that you're available to them. But in many cases, in some cases, it's just about hearing them, understanding their challenges, and relating to them in some way. And I think it's important, I want to build on this concept of relating. You know, COVID transcends titles and hierarchies and org structure. Everybody is impacted in some way. And it's acknowledging life, like life is happening around us. And there are different scenarios each of us are confronted with. And some of them are incredibly serious. And my heart goes out to those who have family members and friends who have been impacted through job loss or illness with COVID. But it's also about some of the things that we can laugh about, right? Think about how many people you know who have been interrupted on a call because their kids walked in their pajamas and they start talking. And I like to actually say, oh, is that your son, your daughter? And the person I'm interacting with might introduce their son or daughter, and I'll have a chat. Like I can give an example. One of my direct reports' sons walked in, he had a Star Wars outfit on, and I was like, I love Star Wars. He was like, we talked about that, and it was fun and it was cute. And I will tell you all, a secret. I was presenting on a big, large meeting at my work, and my dog came and sat next to me and started poking me with his paw. as I was presenting. And it's really hard to balance when your dog is poking at you to say to go outside and you're on video presenting to all these people. And he was very cute and adorable, but at that point I couldn't say, go lay down. So there were all these things happening. And sometimes just taking a moment out to listen to people when they say things aren't fine, helping them if they ask for help or offering advice. And sometimes just sharing the vignettes that make everybody relate to each other in some way. The tough stuff and the seemingly humorous stuff can just all make it that we're in this together.
And we're indeed all together on what's happening, and it's affecting everyone at different levels.
Mm-hmm.
And reminding the joys of life are important to help us go through the day. You know, it's not everything, it's not just dark times and uncertainty, but it's also opportunities to improve and be resilient. Yvonne, I would like to hear your thoughts next.
I love what everyone has said, and you know, it's funny. Roxanne talks about her coworker's son in his pajamas and being able to, you know, to have a conversation with him, and I think that's important, right? Because for the first time in the workforce, we're almost being allowed into our coworkers' homes in some shape or form. Right? You have a sense of their life based on different instances or interaction video. And I do think that creates a stronger bond and a sense of, you know, we ask these individuals when they're here to bring their whole self to work. Well, now we're getting a glimpse of their lives and everything they manage. I would say too, and I agree, I forget who said it, but it was mentioned that we should, you know, definitely call to check in really without an agenda. And I too, I have been getting some of those emails like, oh, you know, now more than ever, you need my services. You know, by the way, how are you? And it's a bit of a turnoff. But I will say that what I've tried to do is to reach out with purpose and being intentional. So I'm trying to be helpful. I get access to a lot of different material that help prepare organizations during a crisis, that help now return to work or return to the office is a big topic. The governor just put an advisory committee together. So I have access to a lot of thoughts around that and op-eds. So I've been sending it to people that I know that are grappling with the same, you know, thoughts, maybe at a lesser scale, smaller businesses that are trying to figure that out. So I'm trying to be helpful in my outreach, which I think, you know, hopefully people will appreciate. But I agree. Those emails that you get, how are you? And by the way, can you pick up my services? They're a bit, you know, they turn you off a bit.
That's very great to hear, and thank you, Yvonne, for sharing that. We have heard a lot about how you are managing your relationships at work and with other colleagues that might be from outside of the office. And we'd like to transition a little bit about our life and home. And can you talk a little bit about how you're managing your relationships at home as well? Yvonne, I know you mentioned you're working in the office, so it's a little bit kind of how it was back in the normal days from us, but how are you managing your relationships at home?
I mean, it's tough. In addition to being Ron's chief of staff, I'm also the head of communications. So as you can imagine, for all the professionals in communications, it's a really busy time. And also, I think Roxanne was giving some great points on how to be innovative and creative right now and how we communicate. So constantly trying to think of ways not only to have my CEO speak with, you know, with all our employees globally, but also do it in a thoughtful way, which means segmented approaches. And in addition to him, the rest of the management committee team. So it's been really busy. And I share that because when I go home, it's hard to turn it off. And, you know, I suffer from not being with them all day and then feeling like finally you're home. What are we going to do? Let's watch a movie. And then needing to get back on a computer or get back on a conference call to accommodate the different time zones. So I will say it's been tough finding that time. I am feeling an extreme sense of guilt more than, you know, when things were normal. And even though I'm not on a plane, which is helpful, but it's just really busy right now from a comms perspective. So I will say that I may not be excelling in that whole balance, and I'm trying to figure out how to to leverage the time. We do have sit-down dinners, which is really nice. And we do have great conversations as a family during that time. But I'm trying to figure out a better balance on the work from home piece, from spending time at home with the kids.
That's great to hear. And I think something that we almost forget is that this is a new situation for all of us. So we don't have it all figured out. So it's good to see someone in a position such as yours actually sharing that you're also going through this. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Roxanne, I know you recently started your new job in September of 2019. So how is it managing the workload with your relationships at home as well during this time?
So I stopped talking about balance and started talking about coexistence, so work-life coexistence. And I've believed this for some time, but it's been so much more real now. You start your day and you end your day, and you can see your laptop, you have your cell phone. Those are all very real things. But I've talked a little bit about fatigue and about timeouts, and there are times that I'm making time for the small things. And just to set context, I have an 18-year-old daughter who is living on the West Coast during this crisis, and I'm fine with it. It's totally great, but it does create a worry for a mother that she's okay and that her internship and her work continues in a meaningful way and she's safe. So it's about managing a distant relationship with my daughter while also having a in-home relationship with my 15-year-old daughter. So it's making time and taking time for the small things. Yvonne talked about dinner, and Callie and I will do dinner together. But it's really also about making time to understand where your family's at. And there's an 18-year-old view, a 15-year-old view, my husband's view, and even my puppy's view, right? He wants to be outside more, running around. But I do think it's managing relationships starts with understanding and meeting them where they're at, and then working from there. And again, tips and tactics later. But I'm seeking to understand the mind of a 15-year-old and what it means to not be at school all day at a time where 15-year-olds are learning to be their own person, their individual, and supposedly breaking from their parents and growing up. Same with an 18-year-old. So trying very hard to understand where they are.
That's great to hear. And I remember hearing a comment from Cuomo a couple days ago about him maintaining his relationships and being able to actually connect more with his family and actually having conversations with them. So thank you for sharing that. Sandra, you have been working from home like longer probably than most of us. Do you have any tips for us?
I have a lot of tips, I'm sure. One thing is, first of all, I think in what we're doing as a profession, it's important that we do something we enjoy doing. Whether we're going into the office every day, something that we find a flow in what it is that we're doing. We get in our groove and in our mojo. When working from home, I think it's so important to focus on that time, to make sure that you're still as creative. One of the things is my spouse is also home, right? I was working from home myself, and it's getting used to someone else in the house and making sure that we're taking time for each other, as well as I gotta finish this project, or I gotta finish this thing that I'm working on. And it's about understanding that we're all in that same boat, right? I would never say to him, oh, it's, spend time with me, let's watch this, if he needs to get a project done. The same way, he would never say to me, oh, you can't do that, there's none of that. It's understanding the respect, the balance, that when we're together, we're together. But when we find something that we feel we're in the creative flow, like we feel so just in our energy of, I love doing this, I love helping people, accomplish this. It's important that whether it's at, there is no 9 to 5 is really what I'm getting to. There is no, you can have that structure, and it's important that if you are used to that structure, you stay to that structure if that works for you. Working from home at this time, like I find myself where I'm most creative could be in the middle of the night, so I'm flexible with not putting on myself that I have to get everything done in this window. No, because in the middle of the day, we might take a lunch and an extra hour or two to kind of spend time together. And then I'll pick up that project later on in the evening. So it's being flexible with yourself, and being flexible with others and not holding somebody else to saying, this is our time. Yes, we all are all trying to survive, right? So finding your zone of genius, right? Where are you most creative? When are you most productive? And being open to that, it may not be in that window that you think. You may find yourself more creative at different times. So being open to that, as well as giving somebody else that's in the house the opportunity to be the same, that to understand that we're all trying to discover where we are most productive and can accomplish so much more throughout the day is really most.
That's really good to hear. And this is a great transition for our next question, because we have heard a lot about how important it is to take care of ourselves during these times. So can you share some of the self-care techniques that you have been using during this time?
I definitely meditation. In the morning when I wake up, I spend time, I'll drink my coffee and I'll stare at the tree and I'll hear the birds chirping. I think we have to make sure that we're grounded with nature. If nothing else, you are grounded with nature. You're able to sit by a tree or stare at a tree and inhale the energy of life. Is so much bigger than the nuances sometimes we worry about when it comes to our work. So I'm constantly in that, what's most important? Is this really the most important thing right now that I'm concerned with? So I make sure that I meditate. I make sure that I take a couple minutes throughout my day, even if I'm sitting at my desk, and just kind of recenter to, we're spiritual beings all undergoing through this. Sometimes we spend so much more worrying about the details that we forget at the end of the day. These birds are chirping, they're singing, the sun is out, shining. Life is so much bigger than what we, are worried about when we're worrying about things. Exercise is so important. Getting in the gym, getting some workout, because I think I saw a science study that for every day that you don't exercise, we lose our brains start to lose their ability to be on, and thinking. So it's important to exercise. It's important to do physical weight, activity, so that we're keeping our bodies, young. We want to stay young and alert, and making sure, that we do those things, exercise, meditation, be grounded, prayer, journaling, things that remind you that this isn't the real thing. The real thing is who we evolve as beings, who we become as servants, and the difference that we can make in somebody else's life on a spiritual level versus the physical.
Those are some great tips. Thank you so much for sharing. What about you, Roxanne? What are you doing for self-care these days?
Exercising is great, and I was running until I broke my toe, and that's a whole other long story, but I'll be running again shortly, I think. So what can I do with the foot that was in a boot for a couple of days? I actually started driving, and driving to places that I haven't been in the Commonwealth. And it's not about that I'm getting out of the car or I'm going, visiting a store or anything. It's about just going out and connecting with, some beautiful localities in the Commonwealth and seeing them. So seeing where I live, despite the fact that I've lived here for a while. So that's a form of, meditation for me. So it's travel, right? Travel in a weird way. But another thing for self-care is sometimes just getting myself organized. And I've actually taken on 2 projects. One, I actually decided to go through for all the parents on the call, I decided to go through my kids' art box. Like I have them for years and years, and I've had them in storage, and I've taken things out and I'm showing my kids, like, look what you did in kindergarten, and I'm creating a picture wall. So I know when this is over and I can actually get these put on canvas, I'm actually going to have a whole picture wall of my kids' art. So it's a cool project that reminds me of, how they've grown, but also like some really good memories. And I'm doing the same with pictures, like photos, those archaic things that are not on my iPhone. So building out some visual space in my house. And I've also learned how to hand knit, which I hand knit a blanket for you if you like, so let me know.
I will certainly let you know, so thank you for bringing that up. Yvonne, what about you? What are you doing for self-care in your times where you have some time for yourself?
I would say I'm not the best at it, but I'm trying. I kind of take pleasure in cleaning things out. So I have my basement left, but every single room in the house has been cleaned, and then I donate a bunch of stuff, and that feels good, because not only am I cleaning, which is kind of meditation for me in a way, but I'm also giving a lot of things out to those that may need it at the moment. I, like Roxanne, I've been going through a lot of old files and looking at letters that the kids wrote and pictures, and she just gave me a great idea that maybe I should do something with that, and maybe create a wall art around that, because that's a really neat idea. I take my puppy for walks on weekends. I'm trying to stay active. I was signed up for the Paris Marathon, and that got canceled, postponed, and so the good thing is, for those that know me, I'm not a hardcore trainer. So unlike those that trained their heart out for like 6 or 7 months and then didn't get to run, I just don't get to run it. I was just looking forward to going to Paris. But hopefully I'll get there this year. So that's about it. It's just I do need to do a better job of finding some me time. I've learned how to do my own manicure, so I'm not very successful, but at least not as bad. So just that's about it. Just trying.
Yeah, that's
not one of my strengths.
That's good to hear. At least you're trying. I'll definitely look up some manicure tips from you later. So our last question, and we've touched upon it at different levels throughout the conversation, and I'm going to rephrase it a little bit because I liked the coexistence aspect that Roxanne brought up earlier. How have you been managing to maintain the balance between work and home life with all these changes? And like, what are you doing better to continue to coexist and have healthy relationships with your families? Yvonne, I'll start with you.
I probably a bit repetitive answer here, but I'm making more of a point to have them all at the dinner table talk about their silver lining and what has been a good thing in their lives as they navigate through this, and just being more intentional in making sure that they are being productive in their time, and productive not only in the sense of working or studying, but also just learning how to give back. So I'm using this opportunity as a way to teach them the importance of giving back. So we, everyone on this phone probably gives back. We're part of Alpha, which is a way that we've all given back and continue to give back. But for children, that may not be as easy to be able to understand that. So just trying to instill in them that philanthropic sense at a very young age, and just trying to make sure that they realize, keep life in perspective, and understand their blessings.
That's great to hear. Thank you for sharing. What about you, Roxanne? What are you doing to have a healthy coexistence at home?
Well, I'm just going to start with, frankly, it's been a challenge. I think there's many of us who don't know how to close the laptop, turn off the cell phone. So I'll give some tips that I'm trying to, give myself a break from work, and hopefully they resonate with a few people. I've done a little bit of reading about, what could I do better to take work out of the house. And it's, not everybody has the benefit of being able to close the door, leave their laptop and their phone in a separate room. So, what can everybody do? Well, there's 2 tips I've received, and they seem to be working for me, and it makes for a better day, beginning and end. The first thing is, while the cell phone might be on your bedside table, don't start your day by reading work email. It just creates a whole new neurological sense and way of working. I give myself at least 15 minutes before I look at it, and I don't look at email 15 minutes before I go to sleep. Now, granted, my phone might ring, and there's certain settings that you can set up that your phone will ring for the right people, for the right reasons. But taking that tactic of giving me 15 minutes at the beginning of the day and 15 minutes at the end of the day seemed to be doing a great deal on my psyche and how I go prepared for work. So I'm not introducing work before I'm prepared. It's giving myself a little bit of time to start the workday. And I would say probably I was pretty bad at it before now, like, you know, pick up the phone first thing in the morning because it's where the alarm is, but I'm training myself to disassociate from it as the first thing I do in the morning. And it's paying dividends. And that allows me to think of different things during that time that gets me mentally prepared for work, and then mentally gets me prepared to rest.
That's wonderful. So are some really great tips. Sandra, so I guess my question would be to you, I'll rephrase it a little bit. I guess, how have you been helping your husband get you more used to the coexistence, and how have you been adapting to having someone else in your work from home space?
Yeah, that can get a little bit difficult, right? I'm sure many of you guys are dealing with that. I wouldn't say so much help, you know, I think it's a team, right? You know, understanding where he's understanding where I'm at. Literally, you know, I have a home office, you know, he had to set up, you know, in the dining area. And even though we have a spare bedroom, we're going to convert soon to an office. But, you know, I hear him sometimes on his calls, you know, and vice versa. It's really just understanding, you know, where we are, you know. And one thing, Roxanne, that brought up that reminded me, you know, it is being grateful. You know, I think one of the things that I'm always keeping at the top of my mind is gratitude. You know, despite whatever we're going through, you know, it's being okay and grateful for the situation as it is now, you know, and understanding where everybody else is in their journey as well. So I think that's such a powerful reminder that we have to keep reminding ourselves, not having these expectations of, you know, this should all be done, you know, or this needs to, this, you know, whatever the situation is. It's stopping and just being grateful where we are and understanding where everybody else is, you know. And if we can all walk, you know, together and saying, how can we uplift each other all of the time, you know, is the best way to approach it. I'm always there. You know, one of the benefits is that if I have something, a thought, I can kind of bounce ideas off of him, you know, or vice versa. It's having that support. But we work as a team, you know, and there's certain times of the day, it's like, okay, I know I have to finish something. I'm going to make dinner, you know, so that we, you know, the food's done, you know, and then I can kind of not worry about that. I do have a hard time closing my laptop. I'll have to make a confession here. My son is out of the house already, you know, he's 23 now, so I don't have little ones in the house, but I remember that, you know, and I remember the stress of that. So I don't have that, you know, being pulled with my son, you know, my son and I are just checking in on each other. But it's just understanding, you know, we're all in this together, being grateful for where we are, still having a focus and a vision of where we want to go, and understanding that if somebody says I need help, you know, or I'm going through this, and you said that beautifully, Roxanne, is keeping that open ear, not just say, hey, how are you doing? Or how could I help you? It's sincerely saying, what is it that you need from me right now? And how can I help fill that gap?
That's great. Thank you so much, Sandra. So this will be our planned portion ending, and we have saved some time for some questions from the audience, and our Chief Development Officer, Ileana Rojas, will be reading some of the questions. Ileana, what do people want to know?
Oh my God, so many things, but thank you all. I think you've helped us envision a little bit with your experience on the things that, you know, maybe some of us hadn't thought of. And I want to start with one of the questions asking to Roxanne, in what you're seeing, what do you think will stay in the way of working after, you know, quarantine and all of this is over and moving into the new world, because definitely the old one will not come back. So from a work perspective, what do you think is going to stay and evolve?
Well, thank you for the question. I do believe that that job can't be performed from home quote will be very highly tested. You know, we have many workers who, across all different companies, who are performing essential services in healthcare. And there are absolutely some things you can't do from home, right? Doctor, dentist. But when you talk about a contact center employee, people who have been told traditionally, nope, that job can't be done from home, that's going to be put to the test. And now that you've actually been able to run, a contact center, or you choose a function that's able to perform from home, that's been told that the norms are being tested, right? And there's going to be new innovations that come out as a result of this. There are innovators thinking every day, how can things be different? I can only hope that the startup world is flourishing with ideas right now on how to drive continuous improvements into our economy and our world that are going to help the workplace. And think about things, everything from, how do you have technology that can assess a person's adaptability to perform multiple jobs, all the way to, how can we perform this better, faster, and give rise to whole new skills and learnings that we haven't even anticipated yet. So I think, out of every crisis comes some good, I think. I think we just don't know. We don't know what's in front of us yet, and that's the wonder and the beauty of innovation and solving problems of the workplace, and investing in employees. So a lot of good things, right? And then I also think what's going to stay the same is certain jobs do need to be performed, and we should give a lot of thanks to those in healthcare who are putting themselves at risk to treat others. And I also think we need to rethink what companies have deemed essential and give value to those jobs as well. So, think about all those people who are delivering the mail and processing the checks. We should give a lot of thanks to them for their efforts.
Definitely. And we have time for one more question before we finish. So I leave it up to Yvonne or Sandra to answer the following question. But what do you feel is the biggest opportunity or the biggest thing that people should be focusing on right now, in addition to their work and obviously their personal care? But this is becoming a time for doing things in a different way. And what do you think people should be focusing on?
Yeah, I'll take a quick stab at that. I think staying relevant and showing up. So I'll tell you, I'm on a floor with 5 of us right now, and certainly missing my our peers and colleagues, but it doesn't mean that they're not felt and their contributions aren't felt. And it's incredible to see how some of our employees have just really made a remarkable point of showing up and being helpful. Clearly, every organization out there will have a plan ahead or return to the office strategy, and raising your hand and saying, hey, I have the skill set, I think I can help. So this is a critical point in the time of the organizations where we need employees to step up and to step up in a way that will eventually benefit them, right? Show those skill sets that perhaps you weren't able to show during your day job. And being intentional. So I just think that it's a time to leverage the opportunity to be noticed, to flex those muscles that perhaps you weren't able to flex before. And also to think about our communities, right? From a small business perspective, the minority-owned businesses have always been, struggling, and now, of course, in a big way, are really just suffering. And some of them will have to sunset, others may survive. But beyond your day-to-day and what you do, think about how you can help your community, because this is a time that they need professionals like the ones that exist in Alpha to step up. Many of us are bilingual. Many of us have either finance, accounting, HR, digital backgrounds. And when you think, and even if we're not experts from a small business perspective, there are a lot of relatable and transferable skills that they can leverage. So I know many of us are already tired just because a crisis tests you in many ways, but just dig deep in there and find a way to give back. there's so much need out there.
Awesome, thank you. Sandra, any final words from your end?
No, I just want to really just remind everybody that it's important to stay focused on what it is that we want to do, you know, and making sure that we have a clear agenda for ourselves, right? We need a personal plan and then as well as a business plan. You know, what are our goals for our business? What are our goals for our life? And finding the balance of understanding, okay, what's most important. So really that's it. You know, I just wanted to, I know so many people are struggling to find that ideal balance and structure, how to perform their day. And it's, you know, knowing yourself best, knowing what works for you and knowing what doesn't work for you, and knowing where we are and knowing where we're not, you know, and having that vision lined out and written out and understanding, okay, this is my goal. And at the same time, embracing that it's okay to be with our family. It's okay to close the laptop down and be doing things that are really soulfully satisfying. So, you know, that's it. It's finding the balance, and that's it, I guess.
Oh, you're
Awesome, thank you. Giselle, final words.
Well, I can't believe we're already at time. Thank you everyone for your time. Thank you for our panelists for sharing your thoughts and experiences and being so open during our discussions and truly giving this sense of relatedness to everyone. I can't wait to put in practice some of the lessons that I learned today, and I would like to inform our attendees that if you're interested in upcoming Alpha events, we have our 100+ networking night taking place this Friday. We will have 10 theme rooms to relax, dance, and share. And I will turn it over to Laura for some final words.
Thank you, Giselle. And also thank you to our viewers for taking the time to attend our webinar. We hope that you have found this session both helpful and inspiring, and that you have found some useful tips to make your life equation a little bit more balanced. Please make sure that you're following all of our social media accounts: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have them all. Just make sure you follow us to stay up to date on our content, future events. As Giselle mentioned, the 100+ networking night this Friday night. I'll be moderating one of the rooms. Looking forward to seeing some of you there. And we look forward to hear feedback from you on this webinar. So stay tuned on our upcoming post-event survey coming out in a few days. And we wish you all the best, and please stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.